So today I'm going to talk about 5 times I've experienced fear in my real estate business and how you can use these stories to absolutely take it to the next level of your business. And I'm telling you, I think you'll really enjoy today's episode because I enjoyed writing it. But before I jump in today's show, if you have not been over to nextlevelwholesaling.com and you have not taken the Next Level Wholesaling assessment, you got to head on over there. I've got a free tool for you. And basically it's going to rate you in the 4 core areas of your wholesaling business. That's marketing, acquisition, disposition, and accounting. And I got to tell you, it's going to take 5 minutes. It's going to give you a score. And once you take it, it's going to become abundantly clear on the next thing that you need to do to take that business to the next level. If you want to get off the treadmill, if you want a business that's pumping out 6 figures every single month, month after month after month, go to Next Level Wholesaling, take the assessment, totally free, totally confidential, and I guarantee you, you will get benefit out of it. All right, so let's talk about 5 times that I've experienced fear. And this episode is not about me, it's about you. But I want you to be able to relate to these stories. And as you are listening, think of something or a time where you've dealt with the same fear. All right. And how I overcame it. And then also how you can overcome it in your business. Also, I'd love to hear from you. So if you've experienced something or a fear or something that I didn't think of, send me a message at Todd Toback on Instagram, or you could just send an email to support@nolimitsrealestateinvesting.com. So I remember when I was first investing in real estate, I picked up a phenomenal book on investing, and it was for beginners, and it was called Multiple Streams of Income by Robert Allen. And Robert Allen, in this book, he said, hey, you got to find motivated sellers who live out of state, and you have to send them letters. And the interesting thing was, this was before you could pull up lists digitally on the internet. I know all of a sudden now I sound really old. But this was, geez, back in 2001 or 2002. And I had to actually go down to the county recorder's office to pull names of out-of-state owners in the area. And I brought some donuts down to the lady who helped me, or some bagels, and she got my names. But the crazy thing was, I didn't have the right tools. I didn't have, like a fancy phone system. I remember my actual phone in the condo. Actually, it was a room in a condo that I was renting by the beach. Awesome little condo, by the way. It was like one of those big fax machines, right, that had a phone on it. And so I didn't have the right tools, right? I didn't have a fancy CRM and didn't have a phone system, just had a phone. And I didn't have a mailing house. I didn't know how I was going to do this. But I said, I'm just going to send out these letters. So I literally hand wrote, I don't know, maybe it was about 100 letters. It wasn't a lot, but it took me a really long time. And the envelopes that I had were not standard letter size. They were like invitation envelopes. And, I didn't let fear stop me that I didn't have the right envelope size, or I didn't have the right phone system, or I didn't have a CRM, or I couldn't find the list. I just said, I'm just getting these letters out by the end of the week. And so I remember just stuffing the letters awkwardly into the envelope and sticking the stamps on and handwriting. And I have horrible handwriting, by the way. I'm a lefty. And so I smear the envelopes, with the ink. When you're a lefty, the ink from your hand quite often smears the ink on the piece of paper that you're writing on. And so all of these things, I was scared that my perfection or lack of perfection or professionalism would prevent me from doing a deal. And I said, you know what? I was just so desperate. I was so pissed off at the situation that just happened to at my job that I was at. I just sent these letters out. And so I used this rage and excitement and eagerness to say, I'm just moving forward. So my first story is really about not having all of the right tools or everything set up. Needless to say, I only got one phone call from that mailing, but it was a motivated seller. And by the way, I didn't even have the right contracts. We wrote it up on a yellow pad, literally the terms of the sale. Didn't have my escrow or title company locked up. And I didn't even know how I was going to come up with the money. And so I didn't even know you could actually double close or assign a deal if you're listening to this and that's something that you're familiar with. But I just took it step by step by step by step and did the next thing. And so I got one phone call. I locked it up on a yellow piece of paper, found an escrow company who would close the deal, and then found a money partner who we closed on the deal together. We made about $80,000, and my share of that was 40 grand. And man, oh man, was I excited about that money. Life-changing money for me at the time. So if you don't have the right things, you got to take action. Okay, do something today. The very next thing that's going to drive revenue, not just anything, right? Not busy work, because I could have ran a Staples and got the right envelopes. I could have bought some fancy CRM to put all my leads in at the time. My advice to you is take that next step. Okay. Number 2, fear of the unknown. So right now, many of you are in a situation, maybe it's a job that you are waiting to quit, or a partnership that you're in that you need to get out of. And so for me, quitting my job was really scary because I was making great money at my job. I started out in the pharmaceutical industry, and then I was in medical devices, and I was making deep into the 6 figures, had a company car, and was pretty cush. And there was some unknowns going that what if I quit my job and I can't do real estate full time because I wasn't doing it full time? My income in real estate was not consistent, and I knew that, right? That first deal made me kind of soft. I was getting my income, my base salary, and man, it was making me soft like butter. Perhaps your base salary or your income is making you soft like butter, because I kind of dinked around at my job, and finally, I had enough, right? In terms of, I said, I gotta do this, because I know that I can make so much more money in this new thing working for myself. And so the market was starting to, I was thinking that it was going to shift at the time, right? This was like 2004, 2005, but I wasn't sure. I quit my job, and here's the cool thing, the story behind this. The market crashed shortly thereafter, and there was a weird time in the market then where it was hard to do deals because sellers weren't really selling, and buyers really weren't buying. And sure, you could do deals, but I had to get creative to make those deals happen. And so actually during that time, while the market was crashing, it made me a better investor. I had to learn how to do better things. I had to negotiate better. I had to do more creative deals. I had to get face to face with more people, and it actually made me stronger, that adversity. It's funny because the strength and creativity that I learned during that time, I actually used with me during these times that we're in right now to become a much better investor. And a lot of other investors don't have those tools. So number 1, it was, hey, heading into the unknown. And by the way, I went through the worst real estate crash probably in the last 100 years. And look, it did happen, and I came out the other side just fine after I had quit my job. So number 1, fear of the unknown. You know what? What's the worst case scenario? You actually might get better and learn a few new things, and you are going to outlast your competitors. All right. Number 3, I was scared to death to spend money on marketing. Now, many of you are listening to this and you're like, I talk about spending $5,000 a month minimum on marketing, and that's scary to most people. But if I could talk to my former self, I mean, it took me a while to really learn how to invest in my business, right? The name of the wholesaling game is spend $1, make $5. Spend $1, make $5. Spend $1, make $5. How many times can you do that, and how automated can you make that? Okay, very important. Well, for me, I remember I just said, you know what, I'm going to go for it. The first time I sent mailers out, I spent $100, so I'm not going to count that. I said, I got to get really serious about mail. So first time I spent money on mail, I think I spent $7,500, and that was a big chunk of my savings at that point, right? I was talking about, because before I did a lot of cold calling off Craigslist and the newspaper. Again, geez, I know I'm sounding old to many of you 20 and 30 somethings. But the scenario there was I started mailing right around 2008 or 9 at that $7,500 a month rate. And that was very scary to me. Well, the first week passed and I didn't do a deal. The second week passed and we got a call from a motivated seller. and we locked up that deal. I think the deal was on Prescott Street, if I remember, and we wound up making about $38,000 on $7,500. So do the math there. That's about 5-1, by the way. Feeling really, really, really good. We did other deals from that mailing, but pretty exciting. And I turned $1 into $5. The other part about that is it's about multiplying the money, right? Sure, you want to use your resources and your energy, and you can cold call, and that's okay. But you got to make your money earn more money, right? How many times can you do that? And so for me, I've lost money on marketing campaigns, but I've kept at it. I've been very, very, very consistent. And so over time, when you add them all together, and you keep on tweaking, right, and get rid of the bad ones and keep the good ones, all right, if you could turn $1 into $5, that's when this business is really, really cooking. By the way, if you're making less than $5, okay, maybe I could tolerate $4. If you're making $3, the alarm bells should go off. If you're making $2, you've got a problem, right? You got to make some tweaks. All right, number 4 is I was scared to hire people. Now, I'll tell you this story. I'd quit my job and I was working really, really hard in my business. I was doing everything under the sun. I was doing everything myself. I really wasn't delegating all that much. And I had one of my coaches said, Todd, you got to learn how to build a team. So the first thing that ran through my mind is probably what's running through your mind. Number one, I'm thinking, hey, what if these people don't do it right? They do it wrong. And number two, what if I create competition? And I hear that a lot. Well, the first thing that I realized as soon as I hired somebody was that I was stretched thin and things were falling through the cracks all the time. I was missing motivated seller leads. My paperwork was a hot mess. My books were behind. I'd tell people I'd get back to them and I wouldn't, not because I was bad or I didn't want to get commitments, but I was just too busy. Right? Can you imagine? You're probably listening to this and thinking, Todd, how the hell did you step into my business if you are the one-man show doing everything? Because that's what happens, right? As soon as you are doing everything yourself, you think that you are keeping quality high, but actually quality falls down because you're doing everything yourself. You got to build a team. I'm telling you, it doesn't have to be a lot of people, but you need at the very least, someone helping you with your administrative work, especially if you are a sales killer, which hopefully you are after listening to this podcast. By the way, check out the No Limit Selling System. You got to buy it. Next step, or next issue was my competition. So sure, this is a fear. You're like, what if I teach this person everything and they go and they copy me and they do everything on their own? Well, I can tell you that your biggest competition is you. You will literally choke yourself out of business if you don't build a team. So it's 100% certainty if you don't do this. The next thing I can tell you is that, sure, I've hired many acquisition specialists or people who lock up houses on our team. And I can tell you that some of them, the majority of them, have all made me a ton of money. As a matter of fact, I have only, out of this recording, I've only had 2 people who have not made me money and made themselves money while they were working for me. Both which were, I shouldn't have never hired them. But the scenario is that the people who have left my company, some of them have gone on to do other things, right? But none of them that I know of have actually taken a deal from my company, right? That we were competing on a deal and they took it. There are people who we do deals together. We collaborate. And that's a phenomenal thing. And so I've made more money by hiring people, which I couldn't even imagine doing this business without other people. But the collaborations and the partnerships have also worked really, really well. And so I got past it, obviously, by doing that. But these are just fake fears, right? Fake fears, okay? You ever hear of fake news? This is fake fears. All right, let's talk about a new asset class. So for me, the first time I wanted to break out a single family, and I wanted to buy mobile home parks, and I've also bought some businesses, I was really scared, right? This was totally out of my comfort zone. And so I said, you know what, I'm going to do this, right? I really want to I need some place to put my money. and I want to get it working. I want passive income. I want tax write-offs, and I know I'd be really good at this. And so number one is I got past that fear. First thing I did was I found somebody who did it. I knew they were better than me. I gave them money. They coached me and they mentor me, and they still do it to this day. I am not scared to invest in knowledge and myself. Okay, so that gave me a lot more confidence. Number two, when I was looking at deals, I'm like, okay, how do I make this a no-brainer? And so, how do I do a deal? Because I ran into a couple of deals, and I'm like, if I'm feeling iffy, right, then I'm not going to do the deal. But what is my definition of a no-brainer deal? So I wrote that down. And I said, okay, if I could double my money here in 2 years, and the risk of me losing my principal, right, of the money that I'm putting in is little to none, right, then I'll do the deal. So that's exactly what we did when I bought my first mobile home park. We doubled that money pretty much within the first year and made about $1 million in net worth, right? Because we actually still have that one I'm talking about. And since then, we've bought many others. So I've also done the same thing, buying some businesses where I was scared, right, and out of my comfort zone. And I said, okay, what is a no-brainer? And so I wrote that down. I'm like, okay, this is what it looks like. This is the criteria. And I bought those businesses, and they have all become very, very, very profitable for me. So the key there is when you are maybe looking to go into a new asset class or buying a business or investing in someone's deal, write down kind of what the end result should look like, and in terms of the upside, right? So basically what I always look at this is like, look, we want a big upside with little to no downside, at least minimizing it. So that's never going to find that. So let's talk about a little bit about what this comes down to, because this is a small deviation, but there's a great video on YouTube. You could search Dan Sullivan, and you could put the Dan Sullivan 4 C's. But whenever you're trying to get past a fear or learn something new, right? These are all areas where I had to get past fear to get to that new growth. And so why do we stop, right? Why do we let fear stop us? Because usually there's some kind of an idea or a commitment to do something. And that's what Dan Sullivan says the first C is, the commitment. And so, who, by the way, is one of my mentors. And so we commit to get into the wholesaling business. We commit to hire somebody. We commit to quitting our job. We commit to buy a new asset class or invest in somebody else, right? And then we're like, okay, and we're pumped. And then all of a sudden, right, step 2, fear creeps in. Okay, Dan Sullivan now says, C, this is courage. So now we get scared. Do we stop and retreat, go back to our comfort zone, or do we keep going? The funny thing is, all of these things that I've been into, that I'm talking about, I was uncomfortable to do them. And someone mentioned this to me. It's like skydiving, right? So if you're skydiving, you are like, I don't want to jump out of the plane. I don't want, you committed, right? You're in the plane. You're up there, but you haven't jumped out, right? You haven't jumped out of that plane. And now you're about to jump out and you're like, oh crap, right? I'm not sure I want to do this, right? And so you're thinking about how you're going to get out of this, and you're going to sit down and tell the pilot, nope, I'm out. And so now that feeling of scarcity or loss creeps in. And so this is where you have to have the courage. That's the second C. What I've noticed is that as soon as you take that first major step, right? You quit the job, you spend the money in the marketing, you hire that person, you buy whatever that is, all of a sudden that fear almost automatically dissipates, and now the adrenaline kicks in. Now you haven't gotten the result yet, right? But you got past fear, you took that first step, and all of a sudden you're not scared anymore. Pretty freaking amazing, right? And then even before you get the result, usually you get the feeling of like, why didn't I do this sooner? Now, what's cool is that you're taking action, and you still got that feeling of adrenaline. Actually, the best feeling often is you've taken that first step and you haven't gotten even the result that you want yet, which is pretty freaking awesome. Okay. And then the next part is obviously you get the result, right? You are now competent. That's the last C. And so you are now competent, and you've done it, right? You've done the deal and you could do it again. And only then, right, after you've done it many times, you've lost your fear, and now you are confident. And so all four of these things, right, I do without fear, right? I send letters out without fear, spend marketing. Obviously, I quit my job. I spend money to market. I hire people in my businesses, and I buy different asset classes. All things. Now, by the way, I have a new set of fears that I have to deal with, right? But hopefully, this has helped you. And understand that the growth that we talk about here, that feeling of scarcity and loss, and then moving forward with courage, the feeling of why didn't I do this sooner? And then finally, the feeling of confidence, like you have to go in that cycle. We all want the confidence first, but the problem is it doesn't work that way, right? You got to move, you got to jump out of that plane when you don't know what is going to happen. So I hope you enjoyed today's show. Make sure you head over to nextlevelwholesaling.com, take that assessment. If you want to let me know an area where you've been scared and you took that first jump, hit me up at Todd Toback, send an email, support@nolimitsrealestateinvesting.com. Maybe I'll read it on the air. I would sure appreciate it, and I will talk to you on the next episode.